everyone, Cherries here, back again with a new monthly plan with me video. Today we are setting up my August 2024 bullet journal, so if you're planning along, grab your notebooks or hang out with me and hopefully inspire and spark your creativity. Okay, let's jump right into my August 2024 bullet journal setup. I'm working on my Lila Journals dot grid notebook. I've been using watercolors a lot for my illustrations and it's gonna be the same this month. I just prefer this medium more as I get to create colors I want to use. But like always, you are not limited to using watercolors to create these paintings. You are of course allowed to use any of your favorite coloring tools such as brush pen, colored pencils, and so on, and illustrate these in your own style. We are also using a number 6 round brush and a small detail brush for the whole painting process. You will find the supplies and links I'm using in this setup on the video description below. And if I ever forget including something, just let me know in the comments and I'll try my best to update it for you. I'm taking some initial colors I want to use in this cover page painting. I have permanent red deep, olive green, burnt sienna, burnt umber, and Van Dyke brown. I'm also showing the colors on the screen for your reference. If you already noticed, these are my go-to colors for painting vintage-inspired artwork. You can also try mixing these using different color combinations in case you have a limited color palette. So for my August theme, it is a familiar one. It is library with vintage aesthetic. Please bear with me, I'm using the same theme for the third time for August, but I will try to come up with a new one for the following month. So we started painting our cover page. I wanted to do a grand library. Since it's a huge one, we are just going to paint a part of it. We began painting these little blobs of red color for our flowers in loose and varied sizes. This is a similar step I did on my grand piano painting where we are not making them realistic to keep the focus on the bookshelves and detailed structure of the library later. Next, we are painting the leaves. We want to create some contrast here by painting light and dark leaves. Since watercolors are transparent, we want to start with the light olive green because we cannot layer them on top of dark leaves if we do them first. We are painting these loosely too, so don't worry about them looking messy. But I also recommend marking the sides with pencil and be guided by it to how far you want to branch out your leaves. After that, we can paint the dark leaves using a mix of sap green and raw umber. This is just like dark olive green, or you can use a different shade or tone. For this, I want a warm tone, so we painted the lighter leaves outwards. The dark leaves will be mostly inwards and some outside just to add shadows on our lighter leaves. You can mirror one side of this botanical frame in a flipped version so it looks kind of symmetrical, but you can place the flowers and leaves in any arrangement you wish. There are so many grant libraries all over the world that you can search on Google and take them as your references. So for this illustration, I just wanted something that looks less intimidating to paint because grant libraries can have a lot of things going on in terms of the interior design apart from the tiny books we see from a distance. Those alone are already a tedious part, but don't worry, we'll take this step by step. I also edited the process 4 times slower than how I usually do, but if it still looks fast, you can always adjust the playback speed on the video settings. So we are painting 2 levels or 2 floors with bookcases and tall vintage style arch windows. We are painting the base color of the structure with light burnt sienna and the posts and railings with light Van Dyke brown. The details are thin in this scale, so using a detail brush is helpful for this. When we're done with the base, we can do the next layer. Still the same set of colors, but with more pigment or less water this time. We are adding shadows and details to create dimension. We are using the same brush to keep the lines thin. I also slightly added some dark brown to add more sharpness to the details. So while we do this, I also want to know if you guys love going to libraries in the comments. Sadly, we don't have libraries nearby, but I can share one experience I had. It was visiting our national library here in the Philippines when I was still a university student. We were conducting a thesis or research about Escolta. It is one of the oldest streets in Manila. Our thesis is about how we can preserve the heritage. I was really fascinated by notable buildings and theaters with Art Deco and neoclassical architectural styles. So we had an opportunity to look into archives that dates back to early 1900s to see how it was in its prime. They also have this special machine or tool to view the manuscripts and publications during those years about what we are looking for. The street is so old and the buildings are still standing up and holding on. Some also survived the bombing in Manila during the second WW. I'm not sure if I can say that in this video, so just to be safe. There were also reports of demolition, which we don't want to happen. I remember the atmosphere was quite somber when we were walking along the street, but you can still definitely feel the historic significance and how it was indeed called the Queen of Manila's streets. It may sound silly, but I was imagining people wearing fashionable attires walking in the bustling street. It was like New York City's Fifth Avenue, as they would say. So in our developmental research, we proposed doing activities and events like bazaars, art markets, and so much more. I actually don't remember what else we included there. And funnily enough, I don't remember where I kept our copy. But yeah, I'm happy to say we won the first place for that. And I wonder if our professors proposed our paper to the local government unit, because looking at Escolta now, there are fun events and art markets being held there. It's being kept alive, and I hope they continue doing so. But yeah, that's another thing I've shared about the Philippines. Anyway, back to our painting. The next thing we did was painting the ceiling. They are quite visible in this perspective, and we used indigo for the first layer and Payne's gray for the shadows. This creates a little balance to the warm tones around, or to create an accent. Then we worked on the tiny books on the bookshelves. We just painted little lines with different colors, and it's okay if they are messy. And instead of using paint for the background shadows, I decided to use the fine liner tip of Ohuhu marker because the ink is water-based and that matches the consistency of our watercolor paints. You can also use a pigment fine liner, but the ink of those pens are just too black for my liking. So I did the rest of the books for all the shelves off camera since it's just the same technique. Then we can now paint the details on the posts and railings with dark Van Dyke brown. I almost forgot the pots for the greenery, but you can do this in the beginning. We are just using burnt umber. We will also paint another vase by the entrance of this study or reading area in the middle, as well as blurry greenery on the windows. Next is a sofa chair. We paint it red to make it eye-catching. We also paint the shadows on the floor with gray, and we want to create a reflection of light by painting the shadowed areas under the chair and on the corners of the floor. We're doing that on the chair as well by mixing a bit of Van Dyke brown and red to paint the contours of the side that is facing towards us and keeping the part facing the window light. Then we're just completing this painting with a little lamp on the other side of the entrance. I was thinking of writing the monthly title on the middle, but I wanted to make this available as a print, so I won't need to edit that out. But that's pretty much it for our grand library watercolor painting for our cover page. Now let's focus on the other side of the spread to create our monthly calendar. We start by painting a simple crown molding, or what we mostly see in the entryway. We are using raw umber to paint this, a light consistency for the base or the whole shape of the molding. We are also painting a vintage signage with burnt sienna, and I also painted the edges with white, but you can leave that empty. Then going back to the molding again with more pigment of the raw umber to paint the edges and shadows, and burnt umber for the outline of the signage and shadows on the inner shape. Next, I wanted to use the same coffee stained paper I used in my previous monthly setup. I still have some left and it's perfect for this theme anyway. So I cut a piece that will fit my calendar layout. Then we'll simply draw the grid and write the days and dates of the month using a black Sakura Pigmamicron fine liner. We are also doing the same font style for August using these uppercase alphabet stamps and a white gel pen. We can just put some white ink on the rubber surface and stamp it on the signage. Don't worry about the white ink not transferring properly because it won't. I'm not sure if a white ink pad does the same, but what we can do is just trace the letters again with our gel pen. And you can add dark brown drop shadows to the letters so they will pop more nicely. Below our calendar, we want to paint another illustration. This is going to be a desk with some books. So we paint the desk using a light or watery consistency of raw umber while also skipping the areas where the books are. We can also paint the shadows already with more pigment of the same paint. We have an open book on the middle and some stacked books on the side. I happen to paint the pages of the open book with almost the same color as the desk, but it's fine. The stacked books can be painted with any color you want, but I want to use the same color palette we used in the cover to tie them together. Well, I'm using the same for all the paintings in this setup, so they look cohesive. Alright, that's finally our cover and calendar spread. I like how airy this look and quite different from the previous bookish cover spread I've done. But it's time to move on to our next spread to set up our monthly planning and habit tracker pages. We skipped the blank spread. I think you know what that is for. and then do another painting on the following pages. This is going to be a bigger illustration and also looks similar to the interactive bookshelf from last year, but just a different idea. So we're painting huge bookcases here too. We are using a watery consistency of burnt umber and raw umber mixture, but I think I just ended up using burnt umber more. As you can see, we have a couple bookcases on the middle and a couple on the sides that are just kind of peeking in the frame. I also skipped the part where I added the dark brown lines for the shadows and edges, but I hope you got the idea. Then we are also painting a couple vintage signages on top of the empty spaces beside the bookcases using the same burnt sienna. And stamp the goals and focus titles. The bookcases will be for my habit trackers, so each shelf will be for one tracker. I made them a bit spacious so we can paint a few books on each shelf for decoration. The colors we're using for the books are just the same color palette, but we can just play around with different light shades of yellows and browns to paint vintage books. We want to paint these light so we don't need to go too dark on the background for the shadows, so we can still see the trackers properly when we draw them with black pen. But if you want to go dark here, you can always use a white gel pen instead. We can also play around with different placements of the books here. So I only need 6 shelves for my habit tracker, and we still have smaller shelves on the bottom. The books on the trackers are painted vertically to fit a mini calendar each. Then we can paint the books horizontally on the bottom since it will just be a space to write some notes. We are also painting some details on the spine to make it look more vintage. We don't need to paint on every spine. We can skip the books on the side bookshelves to make things quicker. Then the shadows in the background are painted with raw umber and burnt umber mix, while adding more pigment to the corners to add depth to our shelves. After that, we can draw the trackers. I went again for the round shapes and wrote each habit I want to track above. I was looking into secret libraries, and this inspired the interactive element of this layout. The idea is to have sliding bookcases that will give access to a hidden library. But here, the access will just be these passageways or the goals and focus sections. I wanted to paint aisles of blurry bookshelves on the background for each, but I will need the spaces for writing, so I just painted light colors. To create a sort of perspective. So now we're going to do a separate painting of bookcases. I'm using 180 GSM vellum board in an A5 size. We are painting a duplicate of the bookcases on the center, but full of books this time. We want the same width as the one on the page, so don't forget to outline that with a pencil. But for the length, we want it to be longer because we will use the allowance later. So I'm using my A5 size cutting mat and tape the paper nice and flat using a washi tape. We are basically painting the bookcases the same way we did on the spread using the same mixture of colors. Then we will put a bunch of books in light colors, different sizes, and positions to make it interesting. Next, we paint the shadows on the background and in between the books to separate them from each other. I hope you don't mind me showing you one of the shelves only because the steps are just repetitive. But after the painting, we can remove the washi tapes and cut it into two. We're gonna fold the excess on top and bottom backwards and set it aside for the meantime. Next, we're going to cut the upper and lower parts of the painting horizontally. Make sure to leave like a centimeter margin. Don't cut them all the way to the edge. And after that, we are going to insert the flaps inside. Let's test if the cutout slides well to see if we need to make some adjustments. But when it's good, we can glue the pages together. And we'll just do that on the second one. So that's our sliding bookcase or secret library interactive spread, and I hope you enjoyed this idea. Alright, flipping through the next blank spread again to continue our monthly setup. I wanted to speed up my process here, and since I have bookish washi tapes that matches the style I like, I decided to use them instead of painting a lot of books, which again can be tedious. But of course, if you don't have these and if you have time, you can definitely draw or paint them. So the first thing I'm doing here is decorate the edge of the left page by stacking these bookshelf washi tapes to form a bookcase. You can also see that not all parts have the wooden side, and since I only want this much size on the page, I just left a small space for that, and I'll cut out the wood parts I need separately to attach them on the areas that don't have them. I did another one on the middle of camera. Then we will complete the whole look of the structure by painting the molding on the very top of our spread. I tried to match the color of the bookshelves, but I think the mixture looks yellowish. But it's okay. We're going to cut the edge of the other side, as well as 3 more pages with the same thickness as our washi tapes. And before we work on this part, let's complete the whole spread first. I decided to paint a desk with a lampshade and an open book. We're painting the lampshade first. I started with this color that is a bit orangey, so I added more yellow to it. The body is painted with raw umber. I proceeded to paint the open book while these parts are still wet. The pages are a mix of white and raw sienna. Then detailed them with pigmented raw umber. And back again to the lamp to paint the details as well with burnt umber. Next is our desk. We are using burnt sienna to paint the entire shape. As we move on to the next layers, we can gradually add more pigment to darken the lines and add shadows. We are doing a simple vintage wooden desk here. I don't know what to do with the negative space under it, but I only added shadows in the end, which you can see later. When the painting is done, I already painted the same vintage signages on both pages. I also painted a small rectangular brown shape under because the title is quite long. We are writing the titles with our white gel pen and black pen. So this page is like a quote page. I entitled it The Book of Books, which is also another term we can call for the Bible. The other side is for my devotional plan title. I want to write a scripture here, something about reading, and this is the verse that first popped out among all the related verses we can find about reading. It says, Blessed is he who reads, and those who hear the words of the prophecy, and who heed the things which are written in it, for the time is near. That's from Revelations 1:3. When I was lukewarm, whenever I hear verses from the book of Revelations, it always scared me. But it's only when I surrendered and started reading it, the fear went away. And I also understood that he already saw these things to happen with what has been written. I know that he is God and he is real because he doesn't lie, and he didn't lie about the things written that are already happening. And the enemy is causing fear to the people so that they wouldn't want to read it, just like how it was for me. But it is also written, do not be afraid 365 times. Anyway, the page next to it is for my devotional spreads. It's about the secret of contentment. It's a 4-day plan I'm taking from the Bible app, and I will provide the link below as always. I wasn't able to do the layout on the next pages, but I'm still integrating the SOAP method, or the scripture, observation, application, and prayer. Alright, I painted the same thing on this page. It will be my reflections page. I usually do a review spread last, but I don't have anything to put here, so might just do it here instead. Then we're using these coffee stained papers to write on the things I'm grateful for, things I learned, the challenges, and what I need to improve. The other side is a non-functional page. I'm just decorating it with washi tapes again. The bigger one is from the washi tape shop, and the smaller one is from Paper Monogatari. I used both of these designs alternately to create a full page of bookshelves. Anyway, we are already setting up my weekly spreads. I thought it's the perfect time to use the library card layout for this, so we have the signages for the number of the week above. Then we're using these coffee stained papers for the dailies and drew the rows and columns accordingly. We're stamping the dates on the dates column, and my tasks will be written on the things to do column. And that finally finishes our August 2024 bullet journal setup. Let's do a quick flip through of all the pages we made here. I really hope you enjoyed this plan with me video and inspired you with some new layouts and paintings. I did less paintings here than usual, but I couldn't be more happy with the time I was able to save and still created a setup that I like. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Please leave a like, and let's stay connected by subscribing to this channel if you want to see more art and bullet journaling videos from me. Thank you so much for your time watching. Take care and have a lovely month of August. Bye everyone!